What's everybody? Screech here. This one's going to be a little bit more serious. I haven't really followed Guns and Gadgets at all because, I'm not really into that for the most part. But he's hitting a topic, and I didn't want to the only people I really saw covering it were news sources, and I don't want something that's clearly got a political agenda. I'm not saying Guns and Gadgets doesn't, but I think it's going to be a little bit more open about it. And we're gonna. I only listened to a little bit because I wanted to see if this was one I would want to commentate on, but let's see what they got to say. As you can see, it's breaking Trump DOJ considers gun ban for transgenders. I'm just going to come out on the front and say I think this is highly illegal and pushing towards I don't know, suppressing the people without reason. I think this is going to be more problematic if they try to push this through, and we're going to end up with another Nazi Germany or UK situation at this point. That's just the slippery slope I see it going down. So that's full screen.
This might just be my most controversial video I've ever done, while at the same time being the biggest piece of constitutional advocacy I've ever done. Before I get going, let me clearly state for anyone who is new here that I am a constitutional advocate and a Second Amendment activist. Nothing more, nothing less.
I have heard a lot of people talk about him and stuff, and that all adds up to what I've heard. It's really just about constitutional rights not being oppressed, and because there's some stupid things don't get me wrong, I don't think you need a submachine gun, but the fact that they're outlawed unless you have a specific set is stupid. Either outlaw it or don't outlaw it. Extended magazines are illegal. That doesn't really make sense to me. What? So you fire 15 shots instead of 9. Don't really get that. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. Like I said, I'm not really big in the field, but I do believe it's a right we should have, because laws only make the people who will obey the law stay faithful. That's not exactly how it works, but it's the bad people break the laws anyways, so they're going to have the guns anyways. We should have a way to protect ourselves, because the police aren't always going to be there. The military is not always going to be there. Sorry. That's just that's how I feel about it. You should have some sort of protection. And it should be at least potentially equal. Don't get me wrong. If you want to take them out with a crossbow bolt, take them out with a crossbow bolt. Do your thing.
I stand for everybody's rights, even if I don't agree with what the person is doing. I think the Constitution is paramount. And this one's going to ruffle some feathers. Hey everybody, welcome back to Guns and Gadgets, the premier source for Second Amendment news. I'm Jared, and today I'm diving into a high-stakes, explosive story that just dropped. The U.S. Department of Justice, under the Trump administration, is actively considering barring individuals diagnosed with gender dysphoria from purchasing firearms.
Yeah, that doesn't sit right with me. Gender dysphoria. I don't see what that has to do with that. I'm sure it's going to be something along the lines of that's a mental illness, stuff like that. But you know what else is a mental illness? PTSD. So guess what? That means all your retired servicemen, based on mental illness, shouldn't have firearms. Sorry. That's where I'm going to stand on that, and 1 and 1 needs to equal 2. And right now it doesn't, based on that statement alone.
This isn't just about gun policy. This is about mental health, constitutional rights, and identity. And this is very similar to making an executive fiat that bans firearms for any other subset of people in the American society. If the government decided to pass Jim Crow laws to ban firearms for all black people, like they did before, folks would go crazy.
Which I didn't know that was a thing. So, like, maybe that's something to look into later.
Just as they would if the Department of Justice or the Trump administration decided to ban guns for all Yankee fans.
I mean, if you're a real Yankee fan, you live in New York, you can't have a gun anyways.
Now, go Red Sox. Without some type of criminal activity that someone was found guilty of, or a legitimate doctor diagnosing them mentally ill or unstable and taking the appropriate course of action there is a huge constitutional issue at hand here.
Which I believe there's still a constitutional issue without this. I am a firm believer that felons should be able to have guns. I also believe felons should have the right to vote. I don't see why that matters. I'm sorry. I don't. If you want to like label it down to like, oh well, he had a gun and that's why he's a felon, and then, you know, or he violated his probation, had a gun while he was on probation, and that made him a felon. Well, okay, so what's the situation? Like, I can't hunt. Like, what if I live in Kentucky or Minnesota or stuff like that? Like, I can't hunt anymore. Now I can't get my food. Like, that's just one thing. And again, protection. I don't see what being a convicted felon, especially a non-violent one. And for the record, drug dealers are non-violent. I'm not saying that blanketly, but like, not all drug charges are violent drug charges. So why do they also not get their guns if they're not on non-violent? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't. I think it's stupid. I think everybody should have the right to have guns because it's one of the amendment rights based on just that logic, which I know is flawed. Again, if you want to have like, he was crazy and he beat the shit out of me, he's a violent offender, I don't want him having a gun. Okay, well, you know, there's a little bit of like history there and I can kind of, you know, justify that, you know, but still, like, you had an ounce of weed when it was illegal and now you can't have a gun. Like, come the fuck on.
Let's break down what's happening, what's at stake, and why it matters. And I really want to hear your opinion on this. But first, I want to thank Patriot Mobile for sponsoring the video. Guys, I realize there are many, many choices when it comes to who you choose for your cell phone service, and there are new ones popping up all the time.
Like this one.
Here's the truth. There's only one that boldly stands in the gap for every American that believes that freedom is worth fighting for, and that's Patriot Mobile. For more than 12 years, Patriot Mobile has been on the front lines fighting for our God-given rights and freedoms while also providing exceptional nationwide cell phone service with access to all three main networks. Don't just take my word for it. Ask the hundreds of thousands of Americans who've made the switch and are now supporting causes that they believe in simply by joining Patriot Mobile. Switching is easier than ever. You can activate in minutes from the comfort of your own home. You can keep your number, keep your phone, or you can upgrade. Patriot Mobile's all US-based support team is standing by to take care of you. Call 972-PATRIOT today or head over to patriotmobile.com/GunsNGadgets, the letter N, and use promo code GunsNGadgets for a free month of service. Links are down below and in the pinned comment. That's patriotmobile.com/GunsNGadgets or call 972-PATRIOT and make the switch today. Thanks again to Patriot Mobile for the sponsorship of the video. Let's get to the facts here. As of today's date, September 4th, 2025, the Daily Wire has reported that the Trump Justice Department is reviewing options to prevent mentally ill individuals suffering from gender dysphoria, i.e. transgender people, from obtaining firearms while they're deemed unstable or unwell.
Okay, so what deems unstable or unwell? Because people with anxiety can be unstable. You put me in a theme park and I become unstable. So, like, what's the metric? Where's the fairness?
Who deems them that? Now, the language used here, mentally ill, is not only inflammatory, it taps into decades of stigma. So, who makes that decision?
Yeah, because if you just use mentally ill, okay, so Down syndrome people, autism, ADHD, PTSD, anxiety, social anxiety disorder, rickets. And I'm not even sure what that is, but I'm just going to throw that in there. Alzheimer's. Well, that's not a bad idea, actually. Once it gets into late stages, dementia, schizophrenia. Like you could argue all of those, bipolar disorder could justifiably say, no, you can't have a gun. And guess what? That's pretty much the entire population of the US.
The Department of Justice? I don't think they're doctors. Now, this comes right after a deadly school shooting.
You got people who don't know shit about guns running the NFA, I think it is. Not the NRA, but the NFA, and they suck.
That was committed by a transgender individual in Minneapolis, prompting calls among right-wing voices to scrutinize what they view as transgender-related violence. And well, let's be honest, if you look at this last several school shootings, it's an issue. It's a pattern. And no official
Pattern of what? I'm going to let him continue. Because, like, I'm sorry. 9 times out of 10, don't know about this particular situation, but I know when I was growing up, all the school shootings, because I went to school during Columbine, dating myself a little bit, that was a major thing. And it was, I believe he was bullied. And then, like, the 40,000 school shootings after that were because of tired of being bullied and going after people. Like, I'm sorry, no, it's not necessarily a mental health issue. Like, I'm sure there's some of it that is, but like, no, it's a kindness issue. It's a human being issue. It's a schools not protecting the goddamn children issue, just as far as schools go, like straight up.
DOJ comment on the specific measures as of yet. They're only confirming that a spectrum of options is on the table. And before going further, let's clarify what gender dysphoria means. Clinically defined, gender dysphoria describes significant emotional distress caused when a person's biological sex and gender identity do not align. It's recognized on the DSM-5, and importantly, the condition itself isn't inherently linked to violence or instability, meaning
Correct.
Just because they have it doesn't mean that they are violent or unstable. That's an action they would have to take. Now,
it's like the people who don't believe their arm is their arm, so they get it amputated off. Like, or they shouldn't have an arm, so they get it amputated off. Like, that's a real thing. You can wake up and like be like, this isn't me. I don't like this. This isn't what I'm supposed to have. And like, there could be other underlying issues, but there's tomboys, femboys, tom girls, butches. I'm not sure if that's a good term anymore or not. Sorry if I offended anybody. I got 90s rhetoric in my head. I can't keep up with everything. And I'm just saying, it's like, cross-dressers, which I think that's also a bad term, but like, that's the thing. It's like, this isn't for me. I don't like wearing these. I prefer wearing dresses. I feel more comfortable in that. That's more me. And like, if you look at the old school sign of the two-way street, boy or girl, there were masculine clothes and there were feminine clothes. And sometimes people would prefer to wear feminine clothes that weren't necessarily predetermined to be feminine. And that's fine. Like, that's okay. I mean, look at me. I'm a little femboy. Hello. Back to the video.
transgender and LGBTQ plus individuals are far more often victims of violence than they are perpetrators. For instance, in 2024, an analysis showed that LGBTQ plus people are more than twice as likely to become victims of gun violence compared to straight folks. All that aside, put that all aside. You have a right, and the government doesn't give you the right. If you didn't commit some type of violent crime that a court or jury of your peers says you get a right stripped for a period of time, or a doctor says you are unstable for whatever reason, the government doesn't get their hand to play here. tying a medical condition directly to violent risk is kind of misleading and potentially dangerous, and potentially a violation of people's due process rights. That's like,
I'm not even sure a doctor should be able to strip it because, like, let's say they do say like a non-functioning autistic person, just a highly non-functioning autistic person. They could be like, they could be all about firearms and like that, the best teacher, they know everything, they do everything right, but because they're non-functioning, they're deemed not capable now. Like that's not right, you know. You could have a again, people with PTSD, like your veterans, like they're trained to use these weapons. They know what to do. Like you're removing their right because of a potential what? Flashback to Nam, you know, or whatever. The Giants in the North. Shout out to Zach, veteran with a sign. I'm just saying, like, why does a mental illness matter? It doesn't. It shouldn't. It should be based on actions. It should only be the courts saying, nope, this person right now cannot do that.
somebody else in the next administration saying that anybody who has Down syndrome is dangerous, or
Bingo.
somebody who has color blindness is unstable. You can't just
Okay, I wouldn't say color blindness unstable. I supposedly have red green deficiency. We're just going to go there. I feel called out. You know, maybe I can't see orange in the snow. I don't know. It's been a while since it's been in snow. Pretty sure I can see orange. You know, that's more of a skill issue than a mental issue. Just saying.
blanketly take people's rights away. You guys tell me if I'm off base here, but for nearly a century, Jim Crow laws were a set of state and local statutes, mostly here in the South, that enforced radical segregation against Black Americans. So what's different of this type of rule, policy, or law that's going to segregate against transgender folks?
Because the only ones that are typically at the front of the issue are white. I said it. I'm not taking it back. You only hear about it in the news if they're white people. Plain and simple.
I don't know. Again, constitutional advocate, Second Amendment activist. Today, a proposal to ban the entire class of people, the individuals that are transgender folks, from carrying firearms feels eerily similar in its function to the Jim Crow laws, using a law to block a specific group from exercising a right, or a policy, which is even worse. Now, the right to bear arms.
Words are hard. See, he gets it. Words are hard. But I don't think it's that. I think it's literally about segregating and making sure to disarm the proponents that may take you out of the thing. So if you make it to where they can no longer hold guns, then the government now has a leverage over you, because now you have no way to fight back if they decide to be retaliatory or go into a militaristic type state. You know, what's that called? When martial law, like if they decide to enact martial law, like, oh, well, now there's no way to fight back, you know, because it's a corrupt government. And it starts just pushing towards the way of you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, take a look at the UK. The American people right now, the American people. I mean, we could just make them a state. Just saying. Just saying. The British people right now are having their speech silenced. And their government's basically doing whatever they want, going against what the people want, the people who put them in those places of power, and there's no way they can fight back, like even if they wanted to, like, because they've outlawed not only guns, they've outlawed knives to the point to where if it has writing on it, it's a zombie knife, that's just stupid.
Is protected under the Second Amendment, fundamental to American liberty. It's kind of odd that we're even talking about this. Now, while history doesn't exactly repeat itself here between Jim Crow laws and this potential new change at the DOJ, the structural similarities are striking. defining one's identity as a reason to restrict a constitutional right. Now,
I've been saying they've been trying to segregate.
we'll say, hey, look, the Trump administration, the president's already done a couple executive orders related to stuff like this dysphoria, or men and women's bathrooms and locker rooms, and transgenders in the military. I understand all that.
That's not part of this narrative.
But
it doesn't
the
matter.
legal and constitutional issue that I'm talking about here is denying a class of individuals the ability to purchase firearms solely due to a medical diagnosis. And that kind of raises red flags around equal protection under the 14th Amendment.
Well, and see, here's the question. It's like, okay, so how does this, like, if they decide to do this, does that mean every citizen in the United States now has to go up in front of a psychiatrist that they may not be able to afford? So the government's going to have to pay for that if they really want this to go through. Or you just have to automatically waive your rights because you can't afford this test. And then now every citizen's under the psychiatric test. So now everyone's documented. There's a registry. We know how people love those. Or is it only going to screw over the ones who are like actually trying to help make themselves feel better, feel normal, feel like a person and stuff like that? Like trying to have their right to happiness, like, I don't know. Like, it's stupid. I don't foresee it happening. That doesn't mean it might get some traction with the way the world is.
Let alone the psychological-based disability discrimination that could be alleged too. Now, if the actual intent is to block dangerous individuals, laws already exist regarding mental health holds and in certain cases the loss of their rights.
Yeah.
But targeting a demographic based on identity sets a dangerous discriminatory precedent. And finally, I want you to consider the danger of a government official deciding who gets constitutional rights and who doesn't at the stroke of a pen. Now, some will argue that this is all about public safety, citing instances like the Minneapolis church attack. Yet, it's critical to note that isolated criminal acts are not grounds for blanket policy bans on a demographic. Individuals are the issue. It's not the whole subset of the person, regardless of what subset we're talking about. Now, civil rights groups, healthcare professionals, and constitutional scholars are likely to strongly oppose this trajectory here, seeing as it's a dangerous blanket escalation of a policy against a subset of people. And people, this just came out, so this is going to be all over the news. People are going to be going crazy over this. But here's what to watch in the coming days and weeks. Number one, will the DOJ clarify what they've said?
Nope.
Or will they roll out any formal proposals? And who will be the person in charge taking the brunt of everyone's ire?
Yes, and no idea.
Number two, will there be any legal challenges, especially if rulemaking starts targeting identity-based gun restrictions?
Yes, because here's the thing, and not to get too political, but it's like LGBTQ is mainly on the blue side, the Democrat side. Like, that's how I see it, mostly. So now you've got a situation where the Democrats, who really don't like guns, now have to say, Republicans are right. You aren't people. You don't get to have your guns. And then that pisses off everybody in the LGBTQ community and their allies. Or now the Democrats have to fight for gun rights, which is something they've been opposing for at least 10 years that I've been paying somewhat attention. So that's going to be very interesting, but there's going to be some challenge somewhere from someone.
And three, will there be a magic wand that forces doctors to diagnose their patients with known transgender histories? And will the medical folks follow suit?
Well, that's the thing. Like, what doctor gets to do this? Does it have to be a psychiatrist? Can it be your regular doctor, like you go to see to get like your testosterone or estrogen or whatever, for whatever reason? Because like there's doctors that when this all first went down who were just lying so that they could help people because they thought it was stupid. I mean, like, so now they're upholding the Hippocratic Oath of they're helping people like they're supposed to, and now you're telling them they have to violate the Hippocratic Oath.
Now, to wrap up, the DOJ's consideration of a gun ban based on gender dysphoria is a flashpoint reflecting broader policy and constitutional issues.
Yep.
let's keep watching this closely, guys and gals. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell notifications so that you don't miss any future updates. I would love to hear your take on this. What do you think about tying firearm restrictions to identity or medical diagnoses? Let's discuss this in the comments down below. Let's try to be a little respectful, but I want you to put your opinion in there. I don't want you to hold back. But just know that YouTube has their own policies on comments, so we don't want everybody's to be removed. Thanks for watching. I'm Jared. I'll see you next time with more breakdowns on the latest Second Amendment headlines. This one got me fired up a little bit. Got me fired up. Our rights are our rights. And we don't get policy people just making changes to it. Sorry.
So one last thing for me to add, obviously, you know, subscribe to him if you liked it, or if you want to find more about him, please like the video. There'll be a link in the description below as always. But because the argument is gender affirming care shouldn't be qualified for trans people, then, and I agree with this, then there shouldn't be any more like hair transplants. There shouldn't be any more Viagra. There shouldn't be, you know, these other things, because that's also gender affirming care. It's either for all or for none, in my opinion. If there's going to be like coverages from insurance and stuff like that, that's the end of that part of the conversation. So here's what I say. If you're actually going to put this through, which I think is a stupid idea, but the first place you should put it through is your military. If anybody's on Rogaine, estrogen pills, testosterone pills, anything for any sort of reason, boom, automatic dismissal. And this is just me being radical and being an ass about it. And then next thing you should do is everybody in the government and everybody in the police force, and watch what happens. Because gender affirming care is a sign of gender dysphoria as far as I'm concerned. And that would make them unable by law to hold firearms if that was to pass. So if you're going to do it right. And that's how you got to do it. This is what I hope you guys stuck around. Sorry if I pissed some people off. Please tell me what you think in the comments. I'm sure there's some people I made mad. I think this is just stupid. I'm pro gun for everyone, you know, like, I don't see what the purpose is. Like, submachine gun, maybe not. Fully automatic, maybe not. Like, what's the purpose of that? But like a semi-automatic, a 3-shot, 5-shot, that would be great, you know. So but with that, I will see y'all in the next one. Y'all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.